Hi, it is Scott Newcomb. Welcome back to the Systems Are Sexy podcast, where we dive into systems, strategies, and technologies that help real estate businesses scale smarter. Today, we are joined by Matt Thornhill. He's the founder of Cozy Home Communities, a senior living concept designed for middle income older adults. Matt has been building this company for over 5 years, navigating funding, development, and launching a first of its kind community in Western Pennsylvania. Welcome to the show, Matt. How are you?
I'm good, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's kind of just start about Cozy Home. Maybe tell our listeners what it is and kind of what problem you're solving.
Well, it's basically a new type of senior living, and it's really active adult living, but with wraparound services provided by the community at large. One of the things when you look at the senior living category today, most of it is built around this idea of we'll provide all the services within our four walls. We'll have in-house resources for all of that. And that's great. It works, but it only works for like the top 10% of the population because of the cost associated with that model. There are senior living models that are affordable, but those are funded by the government, and you have to have minimum income requirements in order to live in those affordable housing, those HUD type projects. There's this vast group in the middle where there is no product for them other than to stay at home or to move into a condominium or whatever. There really isn't much options available for them. And I wanted to address that need. So that was kind of the first aspect of it. The second aspect is that there's the reluctance people have to move into senior living and supportive housing is they don't want to give up their home, and they're not really interested in moving from a home to like an apartment building or a condominium. And what I've done is design a small home. I call it a cozy home. It's about 1,000 to 1,200 square foot, 2 bedroom, 2 bath, 1 floor living. And I put 8 to 10 to maybe 12 of them in a circle, put a common building in the middle that's maybe a 1,500 square foot meeting space, and then put these clusters, put multiple clusters together on a piece of property to form a community. And as a result, I'll aggregate about 100 seniors in one place and have them, and I'm going to market it intentionally to say, hey, if you want to live in community at this stage of life, go through this phase of life together, come live here because we're going to help you get to know your neighbors. We're going to ask you to help your neighbors, and we're going to go through this stage of life together. And by aggregating those people together into one larger community of 100 or so, I can then bring in outside services like personal care aides, or instead of 4 hour minimums, it could be a half-hour minimum for a personal care aide to come visit somebody because they can go from house to house over the course of the 4 hours and get 8 clients and be able to serve them as opposed to just one or two over the course of a day. So lots of stuff built into it, but that's basically the core concept.
Gotcha. But what we like to try to focus on the podcast here is the challenges of going from 0 to 1. That's always the hardest part I found with starting a business. What were the biggest early challenges you faced now that I know you started around COVID times? I'm wondering what are some of the challenges you faced over the last 5 years?
That's a great question because there's been many. First off, I'm not a realtor guy and real estate development guy. My background is consumer marketing and understanding the older boomer consumer. So first thing I did was to find somebody to partner with. And over the course of the year leading up to starting the firm, I was out actually giving a lot of presentations and speeches about senior living to the senior living category. And I would share this concept with executives, and they would say, well, where are you going to build it, Matt? You're going to need land. And this is a horizontal project. That's not exactly ideal for real estate development. I go, I know, I've got to find cheap land. And surprisingly, a lot of them said, well, we've got land. Come build it here. And in the category, the nonprofit sector, which is about half of the senior living category, places that started probably by churches anywhere from 50 to 100 years ago as homes for widows and orphans, have morphed into these things called continuing care retirement communities where there's independent living, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing. And those operators are still nonprofit, but they've grown and gotten to be kind of high-end product. And they're under pressure from local municipalities to deliver, I don't know, something for the masses as opposed to just for rich people if they want to maintain their nonprofit status and not pay property taxes, for example. So when I said I've got this idea for the middle market that's maybe a $15 million project, they're like, this is great. We got land. Come build it here. So in January of 2020, I started the company and I had 8 providers around the country who were ready to talk to me about, when you're ready, come talk to our board. We're going to figure out how to do this. And I don't know, it was about middle of March of 2020 that things kind of went sideways. As we all remember, COVID hit and they had to change their orientation to keep people alive, obviously. So the COVID fog really delayed it, but it also helped me get smarter about real estate development. No, I did not go read the book Real Estate Development for Dummies. I went out and found people that knew what they were doing in terms of real estate development, contractors, people that knew about senior housing. And I partnered with them and kind of was able to package together my concept a little bit tighter. Part of the concept is that the homes are actually modular built. They're factory built homes built in sections and then delivered on site and assembled there. They're stick built, but they're just built indoors by the same team doing the same thing on every house. So it's a more efficient and high quality way of building the units themselves. But anyway, obviously that really slowed me down in terms of getting started because I was going to use other people's money and other people's land to do it. They had to spend a couple of years dealing with the.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to ask you, had mentioned about the modular factory built homes. I think that's interesting. I guess, what are the benefits for you guys, but also the residents for going that route?
Well, the residents it's funny in the modular business, they say that the unit comes out glued, screwed, and trued. The quality is really triple checked because, they're going to put it on a truck and truck it over there. So it's got to be pretty solidly built. And the benefit for me as a builder is I can be doing the horizontal work, the site work while the homes are being built. And they can stay at the factory out, and then come and be delivered when we're ready to do it. And then they go from having nothing there to having the homes there pretty quickly. So there's a shorter, essentially, construction time to get the homes built. And then the homes themselves are, again, as good, if not better, than a traditional stick-built home. So I guess that's the benefit to the consumer. It's not going to cost any less to them. Our product is actually, our idea is a rental community. So that's part of the concept.
And I was wondering, you had mentioned about the layout with the clusters and the community center in the middle. What what's the logic behind like the design in the layout to encourage connection? Because I feel like that's a challenge with the senior living is that maybe they're on their own, and I'm wondering how much does that factor into your design?
Yeah, it's interesting. I came up with the idea from talking to my friends, I don't know, 10 years ago at parties where mostly the women were saying, "Oh, we're going to outlive our husbands. What are we going to do when we get to this stage of life? Why don't we all just buy up a bunch of units in an independent living community, or let's take over a cul-de-sac, or let's do the Golden Girls model?" And I'm thinking, why don't somebody just build a community that's got intentional community in the design? Our clusters are all interfacing the common area. And we've developed a proprietary tool to help you get to know your neighbors pretty quickly. And again, we're going to market it to say, look, if you want to be all by yourself during this stage of life, don't come here because we're going to make you get to know your neighbors. And in fact, one of the requirements of living in the community when you sign that lease is you have to agree to give 10 hours a month back to the community, which means helping your neighbors. And it's based on research that's been done that says people are more than willing to help their neighbors, but people who need help are reluctant to ask for it. So when you set up this kind of time bank where I've got obligations and you've got obligations, then I'm going to ask you if you're going to the store, can you pick this up for me? Or you're really interested in upkeep and landscape and all that. Why don't you oversee who we hire for our maintenance for the entire community? Or you handle programming, come up with ideas for what people can do, and you be the facilitator for that. So we're going to have roles for people to play and an opportunity for them to play it so they can kind of live together in community. And the meeting house in the middle is meant to basically be a gathering space where they can get together and do things and share meals and whatever else they want to do.
That's great. You had mentioned something there, and I want to touch on. Obviously, our company focuses on technology and AI, but you've got the app, and I wanted maybe if you could a little further explain, like, how does it work? What's the goal and how residents interact with it?
Yeah, the way we're going to manage the time bank issue is through an app, a community-wide app that says, okay, here's the time I have available this month. Here's the things that I like to do or the skills that I have. What are your needs? Here's my needs too. Let's see if we can do some matching, and the app will do the matching and suggest people to each other. And keep track of that. We also, as I said, have developed this tool that basically it's a AI driven tool to ask the residents when they first move in to tell us their backstory. And we collect it using a voice based AI tool. We collect answers to their questions about their backstory and turn it into essentially almost like a magazine profile, a one-page magazine profile that says, hey, here's my story. And you're required to share it with your neighbors. But you also get to read all of your neighbors' stories. And in the back end, what we do is look for where the matches are to say, oh my gosh, we just created your profile, and here are like 10 people you've got things in common with, and we're going to create what we're going to call circles. Here's circles where you overlap. It's almost like the Venn diagram. You like the Pittsburgh Steelers. This person over here likes the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's not the same, but you got Pittsburgh as in common. Let's talk about Pittsburgh and how you've got that in common. So it's a way to just create kinship, then maybe that leads to friendship by using this tool to help facilitate people getting to know one another quicker.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I was wondering, have you thought about how AI or technology could help you guys scale or operate more efficiently? I know maybe residents aren't as apt with technology or using AI these days, but I'm wondering as far on the business side, where you see technology helping you grow.
Well, we're certainly going to use it in our marketing and help us develop messaging that resonates with folks and handle inbound calls. We'll have agents that'll do some of the pre-screening and such to do some of that. So we are looking at it from that standpoint. I'm not sure how else we're going to use it operationally because we're trying to be a fairly lean from an operational standpoint, again, to reduce cost and reduce the rent so we can stay at that middle income. There will be a tool set that we're going to create for the residents themselves. Like one role the residents are going to play that initially we're going to serve is we call it the curator, which is the person who's going to look at the resources that are available in the community at large and how do we use them, curate the best ones to provide to our residents. In fact, we're going to call our residents members because they've got responsibility. Membership comes with responsibility. So, for example, one of the things we're going to do is what are the best visiting nurse operations to bring in? If we're going to make Tuesday night spaghetti night, what are the best Italian restaurants we should reach out to, and how do we do that? And accessing, what are the resources that are available? AI can help us in that and help us go through that process. So we plan to lean into it pretty much wherever we can.
Okay. So launching a community isn't just about building it. Obviously, you have to get the word out. Any lessons you've learned maybe on partnerships or fundraisers and how you kind of evaluate those partners today?
Well, fortunately, our project is actually the owners of the project are going to be the landowner who happens to be a university foundation on land that's adjacent to a university in Western Pennsylvania called Slippery Rock University. It's a public university. And their foundation, which is a separate 501c3, was donated this land years ago and has wanted to develop it into some type of senior housing, thinking that alumni and retiring professors could possibly live there. But it would also serve the community at large. So they're the majority owner. The minority owner is another nonprofit who happens to be an operator of senior living communities in Western Pennsylvania, has 60 different communities. And it makes sense for us to partner with them because A, they're going to be the operator. They're going to kind of manage the project once it's up and running. But they also have memory care units and skilled nursing, rehab facilities. Should someone have an issue in our community, we've got a place for them to go. So they're not going to move in and have no path forward should their needs change as they age. We'll have that resource available to them. So those are very important partnerships for us.
Absolutely. As far as getting the word out, how are potential residents, finding out about Cozy Home today? And what strategies are you using them to reach them effectively? Is it social media, local marketing, word of mouth?
It's going to be all of the above, but mostly social media and mostly Facebook and Instagram because that's where the older consumers are spending their time. They're not on TikTok so much as and not on X. They're really on Facebook. And that's not difficult to use, and it's a great way to get the word out. It's interesting. The issue that we're dealing with is we also need to do traditional media like radio and other things like that you wouldn't necessarily think. Why are you doing that? Well, everyone listens to the radio, but actually older adults really listen to the radio. So there's just things like that we have to pack in. We have the advantage because we have a physical place that we're building and it's adjacent to the university that we can tap into the university's resources and host events, kind of pre-sale events at the university with, virtual walkthroughs and all of that, bringing in, getting the word out through the university network, like their alumni network and such. So we've got ways to kind of get the word out pretty easily.
What is the time frame for you guys? Have you laid that out as far as open houses and residents moving in, or is that still a ways away?
It's a bit of ways away. We ran into a little hiccup last spring. We had the financing lined up. All the site work has been scoped out. We've got approvals from the town, from the township, from the borough, from the state, everybody. The environmental, all of that is all approved. Then we're ready to go. All the partners are lined up to do it, and we got the financing lined up. And then the early spring, you guys may remember back in March of 2025 was tariff time. And what that meant for construction, what that meant for lumber, what that meant, it got everybody in the two nonprofit boards, foundations and boards that have fiduciary responsibilities said, let's wait and see. There's talk of interest rates coming down. Let's take a little pause here before we go investing all of this money that we'll be held accountable for. So it just got put on pause. It's right now we're looking at actually a financing deal through HUD potentially that could really make it work, but then the government shut down. So you know how it is in real estate development, two steps forward, one step back. But all the partners are still eager to go. We still want to do this project. We're just trying to kind of wait for not the opportune moment, but the best moment to kind of step into it. My hope is that by early spring, we'll have all that resolved and do a groundbreaking and we'll get building almost immediately.
That's great. As you look forward, obviously, that's been a long journey, 5 years to get to where are you now, and you're almost there. Have you thought about what the next 5 years looks like for you guys?
Well, the good news is that we've meanwhile have had tons of conversations with other providers, people that have land now and say, okay, we want to do a middle market solution. And I'll tell them about Cozy Home and what we're doing. And they're all very interested, but they're also saying, well, can you show me that it works? Because right now in senior living and based on interest rates and construction costs and all of that, penciling it out on a pro forma, it's really tight to keep it at that middle market pricing. It's not hard to do it if you're going to price it at, $8,000 a month or $10,000 a month. You can make that work. When you're $2,000 a month, you got to figure out, what do I do to cut out all the middlemen? What do I do to kind of make this project work? So they basically said, Matt, if you can prove the concept works, we're in. So we could be very busy over the next 5 years, but we'll have to get that first one done and kind of prove it out.
Yeah, everybody wants that proof of concept to make sure they're ready to go forward. This has been really interesting. If people want to learn more about Cozy Home Community and what you're doing, what's the best way to find out?
CozyHomeCommunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then social media, and you guys are on there as well?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Awesome.
Not hard to find.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's a name that stands out. So I really appreciate the time, man. We're excited to see what happens in the spring for you.
Thanks. I appreciate you reaching out and getting a chance to share the story.